Do you want to talk about your creation at all?
The book?
Yeah.
Sure, we could talk about that.
Well, I just want to know if there's any sense of how it came about and just what that was.
You know, I really liked your question yesterday, and you were probing me. Um, no, I like that. And I was kind of thinking of that before because there was definitely a lot of like, I knew it was coming in the mail. Yeah. So yeah, for anybody listening, just for context, it's the first proof of it printed version. So it's been a lot of digital edits and stuff. And it's the first like printed version of the poetry book. And so I knew it was coming in the mail. So I had my thoughts about expectation. Like I kept looking for it outside. And it was funny also because like before it was there, like in the earlier of the day, like I had these thoughts of like how this experience would look like. Will I be excited? Will it be really cool to see it? And it's interesting how what thought does. And it's like, I don't have a problem with thought at all. Like it's just for me seeing very clearly, like it's just thought and what it is, but there's no like buy-in, but it was like, well, it's just interesting. And then there was a couple times that I went out and checked the mail on it and looked out and was like, well, it wasn't here. And this body loves excitement. It loves surprise. So that was really interesting because then when it was there, like I knew it was I probably knew it was in that box, and I was kind of opening and I was like, I think it's going to be in this box. And then it was a really nice experience. It wasn't, it's weird because like if you watch the video of me opening it and stuff, like there looks like appearance of excitement, and I don't know, it wasn't that there wasn't excitement, but it was just also like something very neutral, something like the expression of excitement, but there was no like internal reaction. And I've been noticing a lot of just not having an internal reaction to things, like externally reacting, and that seems like appropriate external reactions happen, but that internal reaction just isn't there. And it's just so obvious. And so when you're like, how do you really feel about it having a tangible, like actual book? And it's like, I don't actually have an opinion. I don't really, like it's cool. I like it. I'm excited about it, but I can't like all of those statements don't really touch something. You know what I mean? Like they're just expressions.
Yeah.
Without the internal buy-in.
That the reply was perfect because you're like, it feels soft. Like actually the cover feels soft. And I'm like,
yeah.
Cool. Because I mean, how much more direct can it get than that?
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And that's what it was. It feels like there's only an outside expression. Like, I mean, even to say there's only an outside is referring to something inside, but it's like there isn't an internal at all. It's just this. And it's very visceral in a sense of felt sense. Cover is very soft. And I really wanted that. Like there were things that like, I think this, for me, this orientation is always been to tactile expression. And that just manifested a lot of ways, I think, through like having neurodivergent processes when I was a child and developing slower, having like not good vision. So it just, through whatever reasons, was really tactile. And that's like been so illuminated in this process of awakening and non-dual realization. And yeah, I didn't want a shiny book. I wanted like a matte, like satin, really soft cover, and I wanted it to feel a certain way. So it had to be hardcover. Like there were certain things like that I just knew as the progress was developing. I touched a ton of books to figure those things out. I went to the bookstore and annoyed Angelo for hours, and like every book I'm like, is this the right size? But is this the right size? And it's this right, and that's the Libra thing, and it's like, it's funny, but it's like, it does find its perfect balance.
Yeah. If you just let it be what it is, it's like water. You can have a 5-gallon bucket and you pour it and eventually it settles the way it settles.
Yeah.
There's no problem along the way either.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. There was something about the video in which you're actually touching the cover. I was feeling it. I could feel it with you.
Quit it.
No, I'm serious. I don't know how to describe it. It didn't have that like that just clean, Dawn dish soap kind of squeak. It was like, I could feel the smoothness. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
yeah. I could feel that book.
Yeah. And there's something like about, I'm feeling it more now talking about it specifically with you. There's something about smoothness as an archetype that's like really an important, like, this book is a radical book. Like, there's a lot of like radical things in this poetry and in the imagery and the way that it's all put together. But there's also this smoothness that needs to be like holding it all together in a way.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little package. What a metaphor.
Yeah, totally. And then it's like framed in a way, right? Like, it's a square book and it's a hardcover, so it has that like sturdy structure to it, but it's also really smooth. So that's like the manifestation of that masculine and feminine, like the framed but really still effortless and not as framed.
Tell me about the weight.
The weight of the book.
Yeah. What is the first thing that it just arose upon, just like feeling the substance?
Yeah, it was substantial. That was the word. And that was the word that I strived for in the process of the unfolding. That was the word that was intuitively like, I don't know, I wanted a hardcover because I just didn't want this flimsy soft cover. Like, I was surprised how much bigger it is than I could imagine. And I have literally, like, I knew what size, once I decided the size, I have made it. Like, I've cut the paper that size, I've printed, so I've tried to feel that size in my hand and all those things, but it's so much different, like the real thing. But there was 100 pages originally, and I made it to 150 because I wanted that. I didn't want it to be like not that many pages, and I just wanted it to be this thin little, like, nothing's wrong with thin books, but I don't know, to me, I just wanted it to be like this really substantial thing. The other tricky thing was, in order what I have to list priced it as for how much it cost to make it, and for me to make anything off of the sales, it had to be a certain price. So that was another reason why it needed to be a substantial thing. Like, I needed it to be a substantial thing for that reason, like that practical reason of people spending their money on something really valuable. And then also, I just wanted it to feel like a really substantial thing. And I think that's what you're really asking there. And it's thick, a lot thicker than I thought. Even if it was 100 pages, it would have been thick enough. But the 150, it's just a very nice size. It feels, I don't know, it's just really, it's perfect. It's exactly what it needs to be.
Seems that way. Absolutely. Yeah. What would you want if you were able to transmit something to whoever ends up purchasing your book? What would that be, besides the things you already mentioned?
I really want people to feel supported in their processes. That's the biggest thing, and that's come through in my work, is that, in the beginning it was really like, well, what is this work? Like, am I teaching people something? Am I mentoring people? Like, what am I doing? And it feels like support. It feels like supporting people where they already are. And so I just hope that the language and the way that it's worded, I hope it supports people in helping, inviting them into where they already are and shaking that shit up.
Yeah, the metaphor is now really seemingly to be full circle, where it's like there's that soft, outer cover, right? That's the support.
Inviting.
And I'm not going to lie to you, we're going to shake some shit up on the inside.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. Totally. Yeah, and you can handle it, and you always have that softness, like that, like the hardness of this journey, the challenge, that it's inevitable. I don't think anybody gets through it without that. I think, like, is important to have that support and that softness, and know that that's always within you to return to. Like, I always tell people, like, let's return to the breath if we're overwhelmed. Like, literally, if the body's overwhelmed, I mean, it's important to point directly. It's important to look at identity and, like, look under every rock, for sure. But we also have to honor the physical body and that child within that's like, hey, this is a bit much for me right now.
Love it.
Yeah.
That just captures it so perfectly.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Fun.
The breath. There's a breath of life, it's taking a life of its own. And in the process of creating it, how was that? Did it, were there times where it was like its own journey, where there was seemingly something to move past, or did it just effortlessly come together?
Oh, both. Yeah, for sure. Like it's definitely an expression of both. I mean, I guess stepping way back and saying like 5 years ago, after First Awakening, I was just like woken up in the middle of the night with these freaking poems. It was like a download. They were all there. And it was like, grab the phone and go, like get it out. And there's like over 200 of them now, almost 6 years later. And 2 years ago is when I started, I was like, these need to be in a book. And it wasn't like, I just knew that all of a sudden. Like I didn't know what I'd ever do with them. And then all of a sudden I knew, okay, these need to be in a book. And then there was a lot of practical things of like, well, how do I figure out how to do that? Right? Like, how do I learn? Like, I've never made a book before. How to do it? Like, do I just put, and originally it started, it sort of like changed shape so many times, but first thought was putting it in 3 stages, because it kind of felt like when the poems came through, they were certainly expressions of where I was at in the path, what I was going through. And I had a really hard time. Like I would sit at all of Angelo's retreats, and all of these people, different people would ask different questions on Q&A round, and like really I envied them in a lot of ways, because they'd have this way of like knowing how to word what they're asking. And for me, it was very abstract. This whole awakening was very abstract and energetic. So I had like, my mind did not click online. Like, people say they have intellectual understanding and then energetic. For me, it was like energetic for like 4 years, until I really, right before I started teaching and working with people, did I start to understand more intellectually. So it was hard for me to word it, but I knew like, there was so many times where I was just sort of like, I would just sort of explain what I'm feeling to Angelo and see what happens and see what comes of that. But I didn't have the way to construct it into an actual question, or know where I'm at, know what I'm looking at. Like it was really clear energetically, but it wasn't clear to interpret it through language. And at some point that clicked on, which was really nice and is really wonderful tool that I can use to work with people and have these kind of conversations. But so I think a lot of the book was that. So it was these 3 steps. Originally I was like, okay, 3 books. It would be like, I think the original names were something like Looking in a Mirror, and the second one was like A Mirror Reflecting, and then No Mirror Reflecting, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they just sort of had like outlines. And then I was sort of putting them in their different, like chronologically, in their different places. And then I don't remember all of the process. It morphed from that. There was a lady I was working with that is a writing professor, and she's written, she's an author. She's written a ton of books. And so I asked her like, hey, can you sit down with me with this project and mentor me? And so she did. We had a session together, and I think I had a certain number of poems at that point that had been edited and ready for some book or something. And she kind of came up with the idea of a chat book, which is sort of like, I have these like little doggy hairs tickling me. It was sort of like a chat book is sort of like what it is ultimately. It's like a coffee table kind of style book that has that's shorter, that has like it's like a collection of poems. So that really stood out to me, and then that's kind of the direction I went in. And then it just kept morphing. At some point I was like, this book needs images. And then it had its journey of what type of image. There was like flowers and realism going on. There was a lot of my photography photos that I've taken over the years that are really like macro photos. And that didn't feel right. Like it did until it didn't. And then it changed from that. And then somehow someday I got the intuition of surrealism, and then started looking for illustrators, and then I found a few illustrators I like, but their quotes on what it would cost to illustrate for the whole book was quite high. I mean, I didn't really have any budget for it. It was just this something that I knew I needed to do, but I didn't really care what it became.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't doing it for myself. It's just I felt like I needed to do it. Like it was happening. It was what was happening.
So
There was months of editing. Oh, this is a funny sort of trivia of the experience, Josh, you'll enjoy. There was a time where my memory was really bad. It was going in and out. And I was so digitally disorganized. Like I had so much stuff. Like I had so much come through where I'd record videos and then I don't even know where they went on my computer. And then the moment would be gone and I wouldn't post it or anything. And so my computer was full of like just disorganization. And so then when I was doing all of this up until this point that I already described of the editing of the book, all these different reiterations and things, you'd think like it would be this like organized thing that transferred, but no, it was like a bazillion folders that didn't, like I would title the folder something I didn't remember what that referenced. So what would happen was I was really busy with work and life too. So I didn't have a lot of time to work on the book. So a month would go by and I hadn't worked on the book and I'd have time on an airplane or something. And I'd sit and I'd open all the folders and I'd be like, wait, where was I? What was I doing? Like I had no idea what the hell I was doing the last time so I could pick it up. So I had to restart this process so many times. It was quite hilarious. There was a time I was on the airplane and I was like, Angelo had, sat by me on a lot of these times of like picking up the computer and doing that. Like I have time to like work on the book. And it was like every time he just was like, he's kind of used to me with my weird ADHD stuff anyways, but he's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I was like, I'm so upset. I was like, this is like the 16th time that I've opened this book and not known where I'm at. And I'm over it. Like, why do I have to start over every time? And he's like, give me your computer. And so he's like, what does this folder refer to? Like, why did you title it that? I'm like, no idea. There's nothing there. I have no idea. And then in that folder was other folders and it was like duplicates of stuff. And it was like, I don't know where to start. It was like, what was happening? And so he kind of helped me find some organization.
Oh my God. It's a microcosm of the path itself.
Yeah.
Ah. And then there's folders within folders within folders. It's like, come on. Can it be any more perfect?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievably awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Did you write any poetry or were you big into poetry before you started the book?
No, I didn't. I found some poems actually that I wrote when I was little. Mm-hmm. There was one specific that was like, oh, it's very tragically sweet. It's a little girl that's like, it's kind of non-dual in a sense. It's like the words I never said. I don't know. It's like she knew she had to let go of something and it was like about love. And I can read it to you if you want. It's somewhere.
Maybe a nice little preview, but
Yeah, that one is not in the book, but so I wrote that when I was little, I guess. I found that in my mismatch of trying to organize my endless notes. And also alongside, so this journey of, I wasn't a writer. That's what's weird. And what's even funnier and like so ironic is that I don't even know how to write, like literally, like I'm so dyslexic in school and nobody helped me. And I never learned how to read and write properly, like as far as grammar rules and spelling rules, no idea. Like this book looks like I know what I'm doing, but it's because I've had really smart people help me through editing it and grammar and yeah.
Well, you don't need to know what you're doing, so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, even just like there, like I would use the wrong there, and I've learned so much through it as far as reading, writing, grammar, and that stuff is concerned, which is great. But it's hilarious that like I technically would be considered a writer now, and it's like bizarre. Alongside all the poems, there was all these like, I guess prose you would call them, or like they weren't poetry. Everything's pretty poetic that's come through here. But just like paragraphs and paragraphs of what's going on and all these, they're really cool things. Yeah, like if you would read them, they're, so I don't know, those might all end up in some type of book at some point too.
I noticed that you used the word here a few times. Would you like to define that new pronoun?
I do. I like that pronoun, and I always think of you when I say it because
We've had some conversations back and forth, and she's like, I don't know what you're saying.
like,
It's like, yeah.
And then I started to realize he was referring to himself or the first person, the no first person as here. And so I said, that's kind of like a pronoun.
Yeah. And then I ended up using it in mixed company, and it was like, thank goodness I had somebody to clarify, because I probably sometimes comes across pretty confusing to some people. So
yeah, I mean, especially if you're sort of talking fast and they don't even know what you're referring to, because it doesn't come off as a first person pronoun. It's sort of like they, it doesn't come off as a first person pronoun. So it's confusing to our minds that's used to what a first person pronoun is.
And usually there's no like resistance or anything toward I. It's just that there are a lot of people that perk up when they hear I. So it's just like, I just want to clarify, this is human speaking.
I don't think you can clarify that with absolute certainty, Josh.
No, I can't. There's no, what is absolutely certain? That's the trick.
Yeah, totally.
So that's cool. So it just kind of came into play upon the awakening, and you would characterize it, all the poetry having kind of a non-dual quality.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. Have you ever even heard of anything like this before? Because I've never heard of anything like this.
Well, what do you mean like this? Like the non-dual poetry?
Yeah. Is there such thing as non-dual poetry?
I mean, I guess you consider like Rumi and stuff like non-dual poetry. But I don't know that it's necessarily called non-dual poetry specifically. I guess this is maybe like more non-dual poetry specifically versus spiritual poetry, I guess, if we're discerning the two. Yeah. And the other thing that really hadn't been done, which is kind of interesting, was an illustrated book with poetry, and like I did. And I couldn't find any examples. I couldn't find anything that was like I was having a hard time with my designers. That I had one designer and I had a second one, and I couldn't like describe what I wanted it to look like because I didn't have an example, and I didn't know what I wanted to look like. I knew what I wanted to feel like. Like for me, it's that. And my designer I found that did work on the book, she just knew. She was so good. She read the manuscript and she was like, first of all, Violet, this is my cup of tea. I love this poetry. And so she did well. Like what she gave me to like, she kept giving me edits, and then I would just adjust a little bit of things that I saw that I wanted differently. She gave me such a good base, like I'm going to use her again and again and again for my books because she's a really good relationship, good personality match.
Perfect.
Lucky to find her.
Yeah. I mean, the reviews are, from what has been heard here, it's kind of a new territory. And I think that's pretty cool because poetry speaks so many volumes in so few words, and that there's something miraculous in that.
Totally. Yeah. And I think like poetry itself is supposed to sort of be like breaking the rules, it's not like, and that's what's so like cool that like I was able to do poetry in a sense without knowing grammar and language as well as I should in some way, or I could, is that poetry is poetic. So it doesn't really have to abide by the rules of grammar and logic. And that's what I hope that, like, I feel like that's what the Violet expression is about. It's about letting go of framework. I feel like not even to own it as a Violet expression, but that's what this is really about, is this inviting us to reach beyond framework, to be beyond framework. And, a lot of great teachings are still within a framework, and that's a part of it. and that's great. And even you could call it, my teaching has some level of framework, sure, but it's sort of the framework of breaking framework.
I like it. It's content-free content,
Mm-hmm.
yet it's content-full nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the exploration itself, even the journey itself, is such a immaculate part of that whole thing. And kind of excited when it's actually released.
Yeah, it would be cool.
Speaking of that, do you have a date?
No, there's some last minute edits that she's doing, and then probably in the next couple weeks.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm gonna get, once she finishes these edits. So this book was so I could see if there's anything that needed to be changed. There was some where like the image was in the center of the page and part of the image was lost in the binding, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right, there's like 2 like that. The title and stuff needs to be brought down a little bit, so it's like subtle things like that. And so once she does that, I'll order another proof to see in print, and that takes about a week. And then I'm guessing after that it'll be published.
Beautiful. Where are people able to find it and when that comes out?
It will be on Amazon.
Sweet. Makes it easy.
Yeah, super easy. Yeah, and then Angelo and I have been talking. We haven't discerned what yet, but maybe some small limited edition prints of his book and my book sold together, both signed.
Sweet.
That would be cool.
Well, and I hear there's something else that might be in the works that I'm not going to reveal, but that has a limited edition feel to it. It might have a contest feel at some point too. And I think a signed version, the signed version of your book, I think would be a pretty sweet addition there. I mean, just the visuals, the little previews that I've seen, it's just really interesting. Like it's both the visuals and the words, how it draws the attention. It's very similar to the immediacy of now.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of like it.
I like it. Yeah, I want to share one other thing. I think that maybe is important in some way. It's interesting because like we talk about this as far as like a storyline linearly, but I think what's so obviously different in my experience, and what, going back to what you were saying about what does it feel like to have it, it's like, it's kind of interesting because it doesn't feel like this process that is now a manifest thing, like, or is now a complete project. Like my mind understands that linear time and that memory in time, and I can speak in that storyline, but it's like this energetic thing that doesn't hold on to anything in time at all. And that's where I'm living. That's where is the truest expression. And I think that's why like without that, it's almost like it's like that view, right? Like without inherent view, taking snapshots of all of these moments, and it's like this energetic thing that holds it all together, then that's not there. It's just like this moment, this moment, this moment, and I can put them in a story through mind and line them up. But that's why when that book showed up yesterday, there wasn't that like internal reaction, because there's nothing that's holding on to wait to have that experience. So there's nothing seeking that experience in time.
And it seems like the superposition of how time is, the book was already written.
Yeah.
And it's always been here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that.
So how cool is that? It didn't quite write itself. It was already written. And, there's a sense of it writing itself. And all the like the little fractals of experience in there too. How exciting. The microcosm of awakening in what the story is perceived to be. It's still pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Like the best part about peeling back the layers is there's another one to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I often ask people, do you really want to be done?
Yeah.
Really want to be done?
I don't.
Who really does,
It's so exciting. Why would you want to stop? This is like the journey of all journeys, the quest of all quests. It's like, show me more.
Yes. It was so interesting. But
I
you got so many like just objectively kind things to say about the process for you and putting the book together and the book itself. And he goes, I don't know if I'm biased. I don't know what bias is. And I'm like, I don't think you are. I think you're pretty like fair and objective. And he's pretty excited about it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's biased, but I mean, we like, how do I say this? That's sounding weird.
Well, before we go any further,
I'm not his special anything.
Are you guys together? Inside joke.
Yeah, nobody's owned by anyone.
No, of
but
course not.
yeah, it's not like, it's weird. I mean, weird is a bad word for it. It's interesting. I think it's not understandable by the mind, to be somebody's partner but not be their special someone.
Yeah, it's stepping away from I need you to glad you're here.
Yeah.
So much more free.
Totally.
I need you as a sense of ownership, absolutely. In fact, it seems like the majority of love that the majority of human people experience is oriented around self. It's oriented around some form of ownership or another.
Yeah.
And when it gets free like that, you know, people get some ideas because they're just not used to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that can show up in terms of just being a playful, open human being. People, you know, especially being a female, I'm sure that has shown up in a variety of interesting ways.
Yeah.
You must like me.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about a little.
Yeah, but I do like you, but there's no meaning to anything.
What did you say the other day? It was so funny. Cut it out if you don't want me to repeat it. But you said, yeah, I do like you, but when did that turn into, what's the word you used? It was so funny. Do you remember?
I'm not exact. I don't remember how it came out, but it's something like, I want to bang you or something like that.
Yeah. You were like, when did it get physical or something? You're like, I do like you, but when did that start meaning that I want to see you naked or something like that?
Yeah, there you go. That sounds more like a flavor that shows up here a lot. Yeah, it is interesting that way. And it, you know, anyway, I think that's a kind of a special thing, because how people want to orient and define everything on the outside. It's really funny here when people are like, hey, aren't you the meditation guy? And the easiest reply to anything is just yes. I just say
meditation guy?
That's how the neighbors perceive.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
You know, you're the meditation guy. And I say yes. Like, and if somebody says something contrary, yes. It's all yes.
You're that asshole redhead.
Yes. But I'm talking about things that are misconceptions, not actual truths.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. You know, Josh, I think a couple people have this misconception that you're a serious guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like really lucky. I feel like I'm the girl behind the scenes that gets to see like you, Angelo, Chad, Mark, all, you know, these like great men that I have in my life that are really kind of have such a goofy side that like I play with a lot. I play with all of your guys' goofy side. And it's like people think that you guys are like really serious people. And
you know, it seems to come up where just meeting people where they are, a lot of people are taking this very seriously and just is effortless to kind of just, okay, here I am.
Yeah, of course.
And then if that loosens up, it's weird. There's this sense of utter chameleon. Like there is nothing solid here. So I just kind of blend into the environment everywhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, because a lot of people are taking this so seriously, I think that shows up quite a bit. But, you know, who knows? Maybe if some of you decide to really, really wake up, you'll see something else. Not like it's a choice, really, either.
Of course. Yeah.
It's like the opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. You just it was chameleon. You just sort of like morph into what's ever going on.
And that's why it's so easy to say yes when people are defining, because it's like, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to take responsibility, but like this life, it's unbelievable. And it is, wouldn't trade an aspect of it, no aspect of any part of it. It is just perfection. And man, if I could just hug someone and have them feel that for a microsecond, just get right into the midst of that, that would be pretty cool. But yeah, this is kind of a journey we take on our own. And that's where it gets a little little iffy. But and I know you feel that way too, because it's just all play. Like, what else is there?
Yeah. And you fall in love with people. You fall in love with everything.
God. All the time.
Yeah. When I was talking to my client today, it was like he was trash pickup. So it was like I was looking at the trash can and I was like, looking at the trash can is everything. Like he was talking about boredom and I'm like how could there be any boredom here? Like looking at the trash can is like fascinating. Like that's it right there. It's everything right there.
Yeah. I like it. Boredom is just curiosity with the brakes on. Like fully engaged.
Yeah. Or like driving down the road with your seatbelt broke. Did anything happen with it?
It seems fixed. Thanks a lot.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's working.
So it was only broken for like those few hours that I was in the passenger seat.
It was intended to be part of the fun. You know, you've probably had this too. It's like sometimes there's this superstitious sense of, am I being tested? Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, bring it. Oh, seatbelt's broken? Oh no. You know, what do you want me to do? Somersaults out in the parking lot and cry? Who gives a shit?
But don't you remember back in the day when you would get so pissed off about something so tiny like that?
Everything.
Like, oh, the fucking seatbelt. Why don't you know what you're supposed to be doing right now?
It's the, why is this always happen to me? Or in Spanish, ¿por qué?
Yeah. I always talk to objects like, why are you doing what you know you're supposed to be doing? You have one job.
It just to be that.
Be that. So do it right or not at all.
It's the it's that Michael Scott quote from The Office. Why are you the way you are?
Yeah. Because it is.
It's its own koan right there.
Yeah. Totally. Because it is. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to see you. Nice to see your shininess. And I guess I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, enjoy your frozen dinner and your daughter. Bye, Josh. Good to see you.
You too.